Alright, hi. Hauling and dead locomotives. Consolidated Rail Corporation Air Brake Train Handling, Chapter 5. Chapter 5, Hauling Dead Locomotives, Condition 511. A dead locomotive is a locomotive that doesn't have any tractive device supplying tractive effort. It does not cease to be a locomotive because of the propelling motors are inoperative because the controls the jumper cables are not connected. A locomotive using units dispatched dead must have their air brakes operative. Dead units must not be coupled consecutively unless it's known that the units are equipped with a vent valve. Refer to Rule 980, Rules of Transportation Department other than conditions or restrictions. Determining setups, 5.2. 5.2.1. The manner of the dead locomotive is the unit setup of the TOW or for tow will be determined by the multiple unit connections that can be made from the hauling locomotive whether the air compressor is operating or not. 5.2.2. This allows three methods of setting up the units of the hauling dead. 1. Dead of consist. 2. Dead of train main reserve pressure available. 3. Dead of train main reserve pressure not available. 5.2.3. A unit is set up and dead consist must, in addition to the brake pipe, have all three multiple unit hoses, main air reserve, actuating, and application and release connected to the hauling locomotive consisting with a couple cocks open. 5.2.4. A unit set up with the dead end train main reserve available must have the brake pipe pressure connected with either the air pressure operating with the main reserve housing connected with the hauling locomotive consists. 5.2.5. A unit must set up in the dead end train main reserve not available when only the brake pipe connection can be made. The air compressor is not operating. Alright, 5.3. Setup and dead consist. A brake pipe hose coupled with the coupled cocks open. All multiple unit hoses, 3 properly coupled with the cocks properly positioned for the train lining. 5.3.3. Automatic brake valve cutout. 5.3.4. Independent brake valve cutout by the placing of a double ported cutout cock in the out or closed position by placing the multiple 2A valve in the trail 24 or 26 position. 5.3.5. Remove the secure automatic independent brake valve handles in running position. Secure number 6 automatic brake valve handle in the running position. 5.3.6. Unit may set up with the manner whether the air compressor is operating or not. 5.4. The setup of the dead train main reserve available. 5.4.1. Brake hose is coupled and cocks are open. Air compressor must operating with the main reserve hose must be coupled to the hauling locomotive consistent provided with the main reserve pressure for dead unit. 5.4.3. Automatic brake valve cut out. 5.4.4. Independent brake valve cut in by the placing of the double ported cutout cock in the in or open position, placing the multiple unit 2A valve with the lead or dead position. 5.4.5. Dead engine cock closed. 5.4.6. Removing secure automatic independent brake valve handle. Secure number 6 automatic brake valve handle in the running position. 5.4.7. All except for the 2.6L equipment brake cylinder pressure must be at least limited to 30 pounds by adjusting safety valve with the distributing valve with the control valve. 5.5. Set up in the dead train, the main reserve not available. 5.5.1. Brake pipe hose coupled or cocks open. Automatic brake valve cut out. Independent brake valve cut in. Dead engine cock must be open after the main reserve pressure has been reduced to below 25 pounds. 5.5.5. All air operated except for the brakes must be cut out. Remove the secure automatic independent brake valve. Secure number 6 automatic brake valve handle running position. 5.5.7. Actuating application release pipe cocks at the end of the unit must open preferably with a hose. Remove the brake cylinder equalizing pipe on the single pipe system must have cocks closed on both ends of the unit. Alright, your dead engine features. The spring-loaded check valve, the dead engine cock, the pressure regulator valve, and the dead engine cock. Alright, 6. Makeup and trains. 6.1. General. 6.1.1. Before connecting the yard air supply locomotive, condensation must be blown from the pipe which air pressure is supplied. 6.2. Connecting brake pipe. 6.2.1. Air hose must be coupled properly between all the cars. 6.2.2. Angle cocks must be opened slowly when locked. 6.2.3. Open angle cock nearest the locomotive the yard air supplies first. 6.3. Coupling locomotive. 6.3.1. When the cars have been standing on the charge or disconnected from the yard air supply, they must have service at brake pipe reduction by a slow opening with the angle cock before coupling the locomotive to other cars. 6.3.2. When sufficient reduction is made, close angle cock slowly to avoid unintentional release of the brakes. Through 6.3.3. After coupling the locomotive to the train, couplers between the locomotive and the train should be stretched to see if the coupling has made open angle cock slowly. 6.3.4. While the train is being made with the charge, locomotive brakes must remain applied. 6.3. 6-4, charging train locomotive. 6-4-1, during the initial charging, the output of the air compressor may be increased by moving the throttle to the run 3 or run 4 position. 6-4-2, before opening the throttle, the generator field switch must be placed in the off, and then the reverse level in the neutral. 6-4-3, the main reserve pressure is to 20 pounds for the brake pipe pressure, but the throttle setting should be reduced. 6-4-4, throttle may be idle, but the main reserve pressure exceeding brake pipe pressure by 30 pounds. 6-5, charging from the yard air supply. 6-5-1, when the yard air supply is available, this should be used for the charge of the train before the locomotive is attacked. 6-5-2, the yard air supply should be connected to the end of the which is the nearest for the hauling locomotive. 6-6, the approximate charging time is 290 psi. 6-6-1, single car 7 minutes, 50 cars 8 to 11 minutes, 100 cars 18 to 25 minutes, 150 cars 35 to 50 minutes. Time based on a 50-foot uncharged cars. Shorter time shown are minimum brake pipe leakage. The longer times are maximum allowable brake pipe leakage. 662, pressure indicated with the rear of the train will determine the status of the state of the charge. 6-7, adding the cars to the rear of the train. When the yard locomotive to make up the add of the car to the rear of the train, the brake pipe pressure on it to be added must exceed 80 pounds, at least 10 pounds below the standard pressure of the road freight. 6-7-2, after the cars are equipped, coupled with stretching coupling. 6-3, before the air hose are coupled, make a full surface reduction on the added cars. 6-7-4, after reduction is completed, slowly close angle cocks between the yard locomotive and the added cars. 6-7-5, couple air hoses between the added cars and the freight train and slowly open the angle cock. 7-6, road engineer must make properly testing with air brakes. 7. Train air brake inspection. Brake pipe and connection. Brake pipe hoses must be properly coupled and in condition for the service. The angle cocks and cutout cocks must be positioned properly. Reserve drain valves must be closed. Air brake system must be charged to the required pressure. Examination must be made to leaks and necessary repairs made to reduce the leakage to a minimum. Employees must have them with tools and materials necessary for changing the defective air hose, the hose gaskets, and tightening leaks. Retaining valves and pipes must be in condition with the service handles must be properly and positioned properly. Brake rigging. The braking rigging must not bind or fold. All parts of the brake equipment must be properly secured for at least 2-3/4 of an inch above the top of the rail. Handbrakes must be released unless needed to secure cars. Piston travel. Initial terminal piston travel the body with the mount of the brake cylinder within which is less than 7 inches, more than 9 inches must be adjusted to nominal 7 inches. Maximum piston travel with the truck mounted with the brake cylinder must not exceed 6 inches. Minimum piston travel must sufficient to provide for the proper brake shoe clearance where brakes are released. Alright, on cars equipped with other than standard single capacity brake of the piston travel, but must be adjusted and indicated with the badge plate stenciled near the brake cylinder on the car. The brake adjusting piston travel the working on the brake rigging. The car brake must be cut out and released as described in 832. When the side vent of the cutout cock is provided with the brake cylinder pipe, the cut only may be closed and reservoir need not to be drained. Alright, 8. Inoperative brake-in routes. A percentage of the operative brakes. 811. Under no circumstances may the number of operative brakes on the train be less than 85% of all the cars in the train. Each locomotive except the leading until it should be counted as one car in determining the percentage of the operative locomotives. When the piston travel is more than 10.5 inches, air brakes cannot be considered operative. In order to maintain an 85% operative brake, the maximum number of cars in your operative brakes must not exceed the following ratio. Alright, inoperative brakes. Total cars in train: 7, 2, 14, 3, 20, 4, 27, 5, 34, 6, 40, 6, 40. Inoperative brakes: 6, 40 cars, 7, 47, 8, 54, 9, 60, 10, 67, 10, 11, 74, 12, 80, 13, 87, 14, 94, and 100, 15, 100. Alright, 8-2, placement of the cars inoperative of the brakes. Cars on which the air brakes are inoperative of the route may be hauled without the change of the position in the train, provided that more than 2 cars with the brake cutout are in consecutive order. Cars picked up en route and inoperative brakes may be hauled with the next repair point of the defective air brake. From the EC100 must be attached with the brake pipe near the angle cock of the H end of the car with no more than 2 cars with the brake cutout when they be consecutive order revised June 6, 15th, 1986. A car having the handbrake with the inoperative must never have the rear of the car of a car having a handbrake inoperative must never be at the rear of the car of the train. All right, and in case of emergency, such the movement of the livestock perishable freight with the caused by the inoperative brakes may be permitted to leave the terminal path of the designated repair under the following conditions. Movement must be authorized by the superintendent. Cars must be placed immediately ahead of the caboose of the rear of the car. The brake hose must be connected with the angle cocks. Open the brake of the damage of the cars must be coupled as described in 825. The brake 825. If the brake pipe damage, care must be coupled at the rear of the train. The brake pipe hose connected with the angle cock closed with the leading end of the damaged car. The air pressure turned into the hose, properly secured against the separation. The train dispatcher must be notified of the making of the movement. 826. The vehicle equipped with the brake pipe only must be placed immediately ahead of the rear of the car. With the air brake must be operative with the rear car. No more than 2 such vehicles are to be included with any of the train. 83. Cutting out car brakes. Air brakes must be cut out on the car when the brake does not release properly because of the binding of the folding brake ring. Defective control valve brakes also must be cut on the car being moved with the overhead journals. To cut out in the brake of the freight car, close the cutout clock in the branch pipe of the control valve. Place the hand in line pipe with the pipe. Release the air pressure with a reserve. Pulling the reserve release rod to the limit and holding the air pressure until exhausted. Check the piston rod with the retracted ensure the cylinder pressure has released. Check the brake shoes are released for the wheels. Defective air brake from EC100 must be attached with the brake pipe near the angle cock at each end of the car. When the air brake defective is discovered en route, the engineer must notify the nature of the defect, the location of the car, and the train dispatcher must notify the first opportunity. 84. Nullifying the number 8 vent valve. If the number 8 vent valve should fail to reset the en route after an emergency brake application result in continuous blowing of the exhaust port, the valve must be plugged. Revised June 15, 1986. This is accomplished by removing the vent protector by inserting the plug, which is integral with the part of the vent protector, into the exhaust port. The defective air brake form EC100 must be attached with the brake pipe near the angle of the cock of each end of the car. 85. Failure to maintain adequate pressure. 851. When the pressure required for the safe handling of the train cannot be maintained, the train must be stopped and secured. If the main reserve pressure drops 5 pounds below the standard brake pipe pressure, the train must be stopped full surface. The brake pipe reduction made with the sufficient handbrake applied with the secure the train, the passenger equipment. All right, making up the passenger train. The release feature of all the passenger carrying the car should be set to the graduated release. The release feature of all mail baggage express cars shall be set for the direct release. When the performing the switch operation for the passenger terminal, a brake hose must be coupled between all the cars, but the brake system must be charged at least 80 pounds. Mix consists. The number of the cars of the passenger type of the brake does not exceed 20 in any of the freight train. Number of cars with passenger type brake equipment must not exceed 20 in any freight train. All such cars must be located forward in the 40th car unless authorized by the superintendent. When the moving passengers in the freight train release, the feature will be set with the direct release with the water raising and the system cut out. 924. When moving the business into the freight train, the release feature must be set with the direct release. 93. Communicating signal system. The communicating signal system must be tested before leaving initial terminal. If necessary, train proceed with the communication signal operative. The train crew engineer must be notified. 9.4. Brake test passenger. The initial terminal test must be made on the passenger train under the same condition, the same manner of the freight train. The following exemption: passenger train must be charged not less than 90 pounds before starting the test. If the train operated with electromagnetic brake operation, the system must be tested after testing automatic brake. Electro-pneumatic air test and making the 20-pound EP application inspection into seeing the air brakes have applied properly, then released properly. 942. Running tests is described in Rule 15. They must be made all the passenger trains after leaving an initial terminal at any point with the locomotive the engine crew of the train has been changed at any point with the way the brake pipe angle cock has turned with the train consists chains. At any point with electro-pneumatic brake circuit cables between the locomotive units or cars have been disconnected with the required timetable special instructions. 10. Train air brake test general. Condition of the brakes. Each train must have the air brakes of the effective the operation conditions. At no time shall the number of the operative brakes be less than 85 of the total number of the cars of the train. If leaving the initial terminal, 1,000-mile inspection must have the air brakes on all equipped cars. The effective operating condition on all other cars continue the air brakes because the inoperative may continue the train provided not less than 85% of the cars in the train have the operative brakes. 10.2. Responsibility. Supervisors are jointly responsible for the inspector, engineer of the train with the properly testing air brake on the equipment, or air brake equipment on the locomotive and the car. They are responsible for detecting defects that can be disclosed and required for the air brake test. This required for the terrain is the air brake test. National Terminal Test Rule 11. The test must be made before the train is started with determining the brakes on each of the car are suitable conditions to make a trip. Transfer train and yard train test. The test apply for only the trains that are to be moved short distance required for the use of the air brakes. Road test Rule 13. Test determines the brake throughout the entire train that can be controlled with the lead locomotive. The intermediate brake test Rule 14. These tests are to be made in intervals of 1,000 miles or less each time the car is added to the train. Running test Rule 15. Test is made while the train is in motion to determine when the brakes are capable of slowing the train. 10.2.4. When the air brake tests are made with the train under the jurisdiction of employees, make sure that such a test must not be moved to unauthorized them to do so then. 10.3. Signal for brake application. During the standing test, the brakes must be applied and released until the proper signal is given and understanding obtained. 10.4. Brake pipe leakage test. Where the brake pipe leakage test is made on the locomotive, it should be made with the following manner. 1. Charge the brake pipe pressure within 15 pounds of the feet of the regulating valve. Reduce the brake pipe pressure 20 pounds. Wait and exhaust the stop blowing. Cut out the pressure maintaining feature. Wait an additional 60 seconds of the brake pipe to settle throughout the train. Check the brake pipe leakage for the 1 minute and show the brake pipe gauge. Brake pipe leakage must not exceed 5 pounds per minute. Hand brakes. Hand brakes must be released on all cars locomotives until before the train departs. Alright, tested end of the train device. When the end of the train device installed, it should be determined the identification code entered within the front of the identification of the last 5 digits identification code of the rear unit. After charging with the train, the pressure displayed on the front unit must be compared with the pressure displayed on the rear unit with the test button is pressed. 10.6.3. The difference between the two readings should not exceed 3 pounds. If the end of the train falls in route with the subsequent brake test must be performed by the visual observation, rear car gauge application release of the rear car brake. 11. Initial terminal test and inspection when required. When the train is originally made up, the initial terminal when the train is consistently changed either by adding or removing solid block of the car's train brake system remains charged. 11.1.3. Where the train is received and interchanged, the train consists of change other by removing the solid block of the cars on the head end of the rear end charge of the locomotive, removing the change of the locomotive boost and combinations of these changes. 11.2. The train brake inspection examination of the train air brakes must be made as prescribed in Rule 7.1 through 7.4 in this 11.3. In charge required freight train. The train air brake system must be charged within 15 pounds of the setting of the feed regulating valve of the locomotive. The pressure shall indicate the air gauge or end of the train device to divide the rear of the train. 11.3.3. The brake must not be applied for the test until the signal is received. Alright, 11.4. Application of the air brake test. Application of the brake of the test. Reducing equalizing reserve pressure for the 20 pounds. Lengthen the brake pressure. When brake pipe pressure reduces to the level of the equalizing reservoir, brake pipe pressure. Brake pipe exhaust stops blowing. Cut out with the pressure maintaining feature is equipped on 26L to press the turn brake valve cut off with the valve out. Wait 60 seconds for the brake pipe pressure to settle throughout the train. Then observe the brake pipe leakage for the next minute of the brake pipe gauge. 11.5. Brake pipe leakage. If the brake pipe leakage must not exceed 5 pounds per minute. 11.6. Inspection of the brake application. Train brakes must be inspected to determine that the angle cups are properly positioned. Brakes are applied on each of the car locomotive unit. The piston travel complies with Rule 7.5. The brake rigging does not bind or foul. All parts of the brake equipment are properly secured. 11.7. Inspection of brake release. After application inspection completed with the release signal must be given the return brake valve handle release of the run position on 26L to press turn with the brake valve cut out valve in the end. On the other 26L cut out and the pressure maintaining the feature and equip. It must be seen that all the brakes have released properly within the condition permit. The roll-by release inspection may be made. 11.8. Test may be made at a yard air supply. When a train air brake system is tested with the yard air supply, the engine brake valve standard test device must be used. The test device should be connected to the end of which from the nearest to the hauling locomotive of the train air brake system must be charged not less than 65 pounds and indicated with the accurate gauge for the opposite end of the test device. When properly charged, make a 15-pound brake pipe service to reduction. Wait 60 seconds for the brake pipe pressure to settle throughout the train. Then observe the brake pipe pressure for 1 minute. Leakage must not exceed 5 pounds per minute. If the brake pipe pressure has not reduced to 57 to further reduce the pressure to this amount, inspect the trains are specified in Rule 11.6. After the application inspection is completed with the release of the brakes and make inspection as specified in Rule 11.7. When practicable, the train brakes should be kept in charge until the road locomotive is coupled together. After testing the brakes, the train has been charged for more than 2 hours, and initial terminal testing must again be performed. The initial terminal, when the train has been given the initial terminal kept under the road locomotive is coupled, a brake pipe leakage test is prescribed in Rule 10.4 must be made with the engineer. It must be determined that the brake pipe leakage does not exceed 5 pounds per minute. The brake pipe pressure rear of the train reduced to at least 5 pounds, then increased to at least 5 pounds, indicating the gauge of the end of the train device. The absence of the gauge of the end of the train device, a visual observation must be made with the application release of the rear car brakes. 11.9. Notification of completion of the test. When the test air brake has been satisfactorily performed, the engineer must be notified that the train in proper condition proceed with the rule revised June 15, 1986. The notification must be made with the qualified person participating in the test or by one who has knowledge that it was made. When practical, the notification should be in writing form MP261C. Alright, 11.9.4. Notification must be in writing. The employee making the test goes off the duty with the road crews with the dock duty, or the train is to be moved over 500 miles without being subject to another test. 12. Transfer train and yard train tests. Movement not exceeding 20 miles an hour. Couple of air brakes between all the cars. Charge the brake system within 15-pound setting with a feed regulating valve to make the 20 surface brake pipe reduction. Determine the brakes applied on each car. Observe all the brakes and releasing either the prior to movement while they are passing. 12.2. Movement exceeding 20 miles an hour. The trains must be given an initial terminal inspection test revised June 15, 1986. 13. Road test set at release when required. When the locomotive of the caboose is changed, revision June 15, 1986. When the blocks are cut out with the cut from the rear of the head end of the train consists of the cut, otherwise remaining intact, effective June 5, 1986. After the angle crack is opened with the freight train, any revision they reopen on June 15, 1986. 13.2. Procedures. After the trains reassemble the charge of the brake pipe system to within 15 pounds with the feeding of the regulating valve setting with the indicated with the rear of the train, the rear gauge, car gauge, end of the train device, June 15, 1986. The test brake continuity must be made with the following manner: brake pipe and brake at 20-pound brake pipe reduction. Determine the brake pipe pressure being reduced to at least 5 pounds at the rear of the train, indicated with the rear car gauge with the end of the train device. 3. Release brakes. Determine the brake pipe pressure for the being increased with at least 5 pounds at the rear of the train is indicated with the rear car gauge of the end of the train device. Before proceeding, it must be known that the brake pipe pressure is being restored at the rear of the train. When the brake pipe pressure is interrupted but not changed, made with the consisting included locomotive and caboose requirements of the road test are fulfilled with not, but it is known as the brake pipe pressure being restored with the rear of the train as indicated with the rear of the car gauge of the end of the train device. Revised June 15th, 1986. If the absence of the rear of the car gauge of the end of the train device, the visual observation must be made. Application release of the rear car brake June 15th, 1986. Alright, your intermediate brake test, 1,000-mile inspection. The train must be given an inspection at intermediate points designed in the timetable. Special instructions determine that the brake pipe leakage does not exceed 5 pounds per minute. Brakes applied with each of the car for 20-pound surface brake pipe reduction. Brake ring is properly secured and does not bind or follow. The piston treble does not exceed 10.5 inches, effective June 15, 1986. All the brakes release. The release inspection may be made either while standing on the train departs when the speed with the held suitable to allow the inspection of the entire train. 14.2. The test of the cars added to the train. When cars have been previously given an initial terminal test or added to the train, a road test is prescribed. The Rule 13.2.2 must be made before the proceeding. June 15, 1986. When cars have not been previously charged with the tested or added to the train, initial terminal tests may be made on these cars. When placed in the train, the next terminal where the facilities are available to special attention. Where the cars are given an initial terminal inspection at the next terminal, their air brakes must be tested in the following manner before departure for the location where the cars are placed in the train. Charge the train brake system within 15 pounds of the feeding of the regulating valve setting as indicated at the front of the rear of the train. Test the brake pipe leakage does not exceed 5 pounds per minute. Determine the brakes of each of the added cars will apply from 20-pound pipe brake reduction. Determine all air brakes and hand brakes on added cars are released. Road tests are prescribed in Rule 13.2.2 and shall be made at the same time added cars are tested. Revised June 15, 1986. Alright, change of screw, no change of consist. The engineer taking charge of the train must make assertion of the incoming engineer, either personally or on prescribed form MP261C, that the brakes are in operative condition. When the condition of the brakes cannot be ascertained from the incoming engineer prescribed from the form is not available, the engineer taking charge of the train will make a road test for the brakes before proceeding. 15. Running test. When required, a running test on the freight trains is required only with the specified timetable, special instruction, and procedure. The running test is made with apply with the train air brakes with the position force the assertion where or not the brakes are responsible properly. The total brake pipe reduction must not be less than 10 pounds before releasing. After the brake does not respond properly, the train must be stopped to cause the failure certain and corrected by the running test repeated. 16. Brake rules general. Cutting off the cars and locomotive from the train. Making a total brake pipe reduction with 20 pounds. 30 seconds later, move the brake with the valve handle to the emergency position after the brakes have been applied, and the emergency to the location where the cut is being made. Close the angle cock on the side of the cut closest to the locomotive. Leave the angle cock open on the outside of the car furthest from the locomotive. Disconnect the brake pipe hose coupling all of the connections before the cars are uncoupled. Cars that be left standing and unattended must be secured properly. Dependents must be never placed on the air brake to hold cars and locomotives left and standing. 16.2. Brake application from the train. Indication of the brake application from the train are a drop in the brake pipe pressure, the sound of excessive feeding of the regulating valve, movement of the brake pipe flow, indicator of the hand to the right, and warning light. Decrease the speed and increase the amperage without known cause. If the train air brake applies in the emergency place of the brake valve handle in the handle off or lap position, if the train air brake applies at a service rate, makes a 6 to 8 pound brake pipe reduction and follow the further reductions as needed to stop safely. If the power is being used, gradually close the throttle, avoids any increase in amperage when necessary to reduce the locomotive brake cylinder pressure to prevent sliding with the wheels and harsh slack action. After the train has been stopped to assist locating leakage, release the automatic brake valve handle in the release of running position. 627. If the train has been broken into, close the angle cock of the rear end of the car immediately in the front of the brake. After releasing it and recoupling the close of the angle cock of the rear portion of the train. Couple of hoses opening the angle cock nearest to the locomotive to test the hose before the turning of the air pressure into the rear portion. After the brake system is properly charged, and make a road test as prescribed in Rule 13.2.3, revised in June 15, 1986. 16.3. Emergency application. If necessary to make an emergency brake application, the brake valve handle must be moved quickly in emergency position, remain there until the train stops. Locomotive brake should be allowed to apply with the brake cylinder pressure should be regulated to prevent sliding wheels or harsh slack action. After emergency brake application for any of the causes, no attempt must be made to release the brake until the train is stopped. Automatic brake valve handle has been in the lap position for 60 seconds. 26L emergency position for 60 seconds. 16.3.4. After the emergency application, regardless of the cause, it must be known that the brake pipe pressure is being restored at the rear of the train before proceeding. 16.4. Sticking brakes. Train and engine crews must keep a lookout for the brakes sticking on the train and the trains being met or passed. They must advise one another as to the location and portion of the train at which indications are found with the brakes sticking. Probable cause of the brakes sticking are handbrake not fully released, overcharged brake system, retaining valve not in the release position, binding or fouling of breakage rigging, excessive brake pipe leakage, defective control valve, improper handling automatic brake valve, such as failure to make at least a 10-pound reduction before releasing and releasing before the brake pipe excessive stops blowing. 16.4.4. If the brakes are stuck for the improper handling of the automatic brake valve after the stopping of the train, a full-service brake pipe reduction and release will usually correct the conditions. 16.4.5. Conditions that may cause an overcharged brake system are adding a block of the cars which have been previously charged with a pressure higher than required, attaching locomotive to the opposite end of the car, combining two trains, recoupling after separation in train, effective June 15, 1986. Changing the hauling train. In situations 1, 3, and 4, the overcharge may be eliminated by making a 20-pound brake pipe reduction before coupling the air hose. 16.4.6. To reduce an overcharged brake system while the train is standing, adjust the feed of the regulating valve to the desired brake pipe pressure setting. Place the automatic brake valve handle in the emergency position for 1 minute. Place the brake valve handle in the release running position until the brake pipe gauge shows 20 pounds. Place the brake valve handles in the handle off the lap position. Allow all the brake pipe pressure to exhaust for 1 minute. And place the automatic brake valve in the handle and release running the recharge of the train. This method can be used to reduce the reservoir pressure 10 pounds below the initial pressure. 16.5. Undesired release. 16.5.1. The ABD or ABDW control valves have an accelerated release feature that is very sensitive to increase the brake pipe pressure. A slight increase in the air pressure causes the valve to move to release, and that it will serially transmit to release rapid through the train. The accelerated release feature combined with the maintaining type of the automatic brake valve can result in undesired brake release, and the following rules are not to be observed. If in no case shall the initial brake pipe reduction not be less than 6 pounds. If the application is required before the train brake system is fully recharged, the amount of the reduction, at least 6 pounds, must be measured from the instant at which the brake pipe exhaust begins. The emergency brake valve on the locomotive is to be used only in an emergency situation. Under no circumstances should the attempt to be made to make the brake application other than the emergency within this valve, as it may result in undesired release of an automatic service application of the train. Alright, after moving the handle with the caboose, the valve to any application position, it must be not returned to the closed the release position until after the train has stopped. The handle must be moved to extreme application position before moving it to closed or release position. If the 26C brake valve is equipped with the 3-position cutout valve, the front forward passenger out, freight passenger and out, it must never be placed in the passenger position when hauling a freight train. 16.6. Securing trains on the grade. When securing the train on the grade, the handbrakes must be applied with the starting at the lowest level of the grade. When ready to proceed, the handbrakes must remain applied until the air brake system is charged, but the proper testing has been made. 16.3. Handbrakes are to be released and starting from the highest level of the grade. Dependence must never be placed on the air brakes to hold the equipment left standing. 16.7. Double heading and helper locomotives. When more than one locomotive is attached to the train, and double heading or helper service, the engineer of the lead locomotive in the direction movement shall operate the train air brakes. On all locomotive units within the train, except for the leading unit, the brake valve cutout cock must be closed. All cocks and brake valve handles should be positioned as specified in Rule 4. In case it becomes necessary for the leading locomotive to give up the control of the train short and the destination, road tests of the brakes must be made to determine that the train air brakes are operative from the automatic brake valve on the locomotive until taking control of the train. After the helper locomotive is coupled to the train, the air brake system is charged with the engineering controlling of the air brakes will be made on the 20-pound brake production, noting that the brake pipe exhaust stopping blowing in the brakes applied of the rear of the train before proceeding. It must be noted that the brake pipe pressure is being restored at the rear of the train. When emergency application of the air brake occurs, the engineer of the helpers must reduce the throttle to the idle immediately. 16.7.6. In the case of the emergency, brakes can be applied from the locomotive having the brake with the valve cut out with the cock closed, moving the handle of the automatic brake valve handle to the emergency position, except for the number 6 equipment, or by operating with the emergency valve. Alright, 17. Inbound brake equipment inspection. Inspection of the trains to be made with the locations where the inspectors are employed to make the general inspection of the trains upon arrival at the terminal. Visual inspection must be made of the retaining valve pipe, the release valves and rods, brake rigging and shoes, revised on June 15, 1986. Safety supports, handbrakes, brake hose, position of angle cocks. Necessary repairs should be made with the promptly where practical. Any cars that cannot be repaired promptly must be marked for the repair tracks. 18. Freight train handling. General instruction. The engineer must handle the train in safe with a full efficient manner with taking the full advantage of the throttle modulation, the dynamic braking where conditions to permit. Train braking must be handled in the manner that may prevent the damage of the cars and landing, with keeping the brake shoe and the wheel wear to the minimum. The engineer must be familiar with physical characteristics of the territory and plan ahead for the action to be taken. 18.4.1.4. The following factors will affect the slowing and stopping ability of the freight train: speed, weight, and length of the train, grade, weather condition, brake pipe leakage, and gradient. Where conditions permit, slowdowns and stops should be made with not more than 15 pounds of total brake pipe pressure. With this reduced, the in-train forces are provided with the reserve. Braking effort should be at a shorter stopper than being required. Prolonged use of locomotive air brakes, excessive brake cylinder pressure, especially high speed, is prohibited. Such action would cause burn and damage brakes and shoes and overheated wheels. Alright, 18.1.7. During switching operation of the throttle, an independent brake valve must be handled in a manner that will permit slack to be adjusted smoothly. 18.2. Starting freight trains. The power must be not applied until the sufficient time is elapsed to ensure the release of the brakes. 8.2.2. The approximate time required for the release brakes for the following full service application is 100 cars 2 minutes, 550 cars 4 minutes, 200 cars 6 minutes. Add 2 minutes to these times if the brake has been applied in emergency. 8.2.3. A train must be started in the lowest throttle position possible. 8.2.4. Do not advance the throttle while the load meter indicates the increasing amperage. 8.2.5. If the train does not start with after applying reasonable power, the throttle must be retained in idle and cause determine further advance if the throttle may cause the train separation damage of the traction motor of the rail burn. When necessary to take the slack of the train, the slack must be taken carefully to avoid harsh action or rollback. 8.2.7. While the train is being started with the locomotive speed, it must be kept with a slow and uniform and entire training is being moving. When the starting of the train is on a cover the advantage, avoid the higher amperage that could cause the stringingly. 8.3. Use of sand. When necessary to use sand, the number 1 truck on the lead axle sand switch should be used to prevent slipping in the locomotive's wheels. Slipping of the locomotive wheels causes the surface air stress and draft system damage to the rails and should be avoided. Do not apply sand while with wheels. Slipping throttle must be reduced to stop the wheel slipping. Start sanding and advance the throttle slowly. Where the conditions require for the sand should be used for the train and stop to avoid slipping when starting. 18.4. Accelerating freight. The throttle must be in advance 1 position at a time. Applied time should be allowed to between throttle movements. The throttle must not be advanced in the next higher position until the amperage has stabilized with the last throttle advance. Engineer consists of with more than 20 traction motors online must not use full power and pulling below 12 miles an hour. Must use the care and applying powers at speed below 20 miles an hour. 8.5. Braking freight trains. Where conditions permit, the dynamic braking and throttle reductions must be used in lieu of the power of the braking to reduce the train. Initial reductions are less than 6 pounds must not be attempted. Reductions of less than 6 pounds may result in an unintentional release of the train brakes. 8.5.3. Braking should be started with sufficient distance from the objective point to allow the use of slip reduction. When conditions permit, the minimum reduction position should be used for the initial reduction. If the conditions permit, wait 20 seconds after the brake pipe exhaust stops blowing from the initial reduction. So the additional reductions are required. 8.5.6. When brake freight trains with the power off, the throttle should be reduced slowly to the idle, allowing the slack of the bunch gradually and necessary. The dynamic braking or independent brake valve of the dynamic brake is not available. May be used in a bunch of slack prior to the initial reduction. 8.5.7. When the brake freight train with the power applied, the initial reduction should be made before the reducing throttle. The automotive brake should not be permitted to apply. Engineers must observe amperage the time the initial reduction. As amperage increases, the effect of the brake application throttle must be reduced. Only enough power shall be maintained and control slack. 8.5.8. When operating the mail or the train van. When operating a mail or trail van, trains proceed at speeds at excess of 59 miles an hour necessary to reduce speed in compliance with the approach signal indication rule 285 or approach signal that the following will apply. Initial reduction not less than 26 pounds must be made. The throttle must be reduced gradually to the idle within 25 seconds. Locomotive brakes may be permitted to apply, limiting locomotive brake cylinder pressure to necessary to prevent wheel slipping. 8.5.9. When braking rate trains are authorized to operate special speeds above the 550 miles an hour, the initial reduction should not be less than 15 pounds. 18.16. Release braking. Brake application must not be released while the brake pipe exhaust in the blowing. After the desired braking has been accomplished, brakes may be released provided with no less than 10-pound brake pipe reduction has been made. Brake on the entire train will be released before train speed is reducing 10 miles per hour. 18.63. If the train slack is bunched when the brake valve is moved with the release position with the dynamic brake valve and independent brake valve must be used to prevent running out of the slack until the train brakes are fully released. 18.64. If the power is applied with the brake valve to move with the release position, the engineer should not admit amperage reading of the most handled with the throttle so that it's not exceeding the reading unit until the trains are completely released. 8.75. The stopping of the freight train. When the conditions permit, the dynamic brake must be to reduce the train speed prior to the stopping. They add sufficient distance to ensure they stop being at a desired point, making a minimum of the brake pipe reduction 6 to 8 pounds, following the additional brake pipe reductions as required. When the train speed is reduced to the point where the dynamic brake is no longer effective, the independent brake valve shall be applied lightly to prevent slack and run out of the dynamic brake released. 1874. The final reduction shall be made when the train is in within 40 to 50 feet of the stopping, and brake pipe exhaust must be blown as the train stops. Grade braking. General. When descending heavy grades, the brake maintaining method of the braking shall be made used with the equalizing brake force through the train. Locomotives must be equipped with the operative pressure maintaining feature and dynamic brakes. When locomotives are not equipped with the pressure maintaining train must be handled in the accordance with the non-equipped method of the brake unless specified with the timetable special instruction. When using the pressure maintaining method of braking, and as this feature fails with the stop, that must be made with the train handling in accordance with the timetable special instruction. Partial release of the train brakes must never be attempted brakes, and it must either be the competitive release of the train stop when the stop is made with a heavy descendant grade. Instruction 16.6 must be complied with. 18.9. Pressure maintaining method. When using the method of braking, the dynamic braking should be used to bunch the slack prior to making the initial reduction. The amount of the initial reduction, depending on the percent of the grade weight and speed of the train, must not be less than 6 pounds. The further light reduction should be made with the required for the control speed of the train. These reductions should be made with small increments in order to avoid overbraking the train. This whole braking pipe reduction should be sufficient to permit the value of the dynamic brake to the varied and of the control slight speed to change due to the physical characteristics of the railroad. 8.10. Non-equipped method. When using the method of braking, retaining the valves must be set according to the timetable special instruction. The initial brake pipe reduction should be used as soon as practicable after passing the sum of the amount of the reduction, depending on the percent of the grade weight and the speed of the train, must not be less than 6 pounds. Further reductions must be made as properly with the control of the speed of the train. 8.10.5. When making the brake application, the brake valve should be removed properly with the release of the desired service position. Hold the reduction until the speed reduces below the desired speed to be maintained. At this point, the brakes may be released. 8.10.6. The proper control of the train speed involved frequent application and release of the retaining valve that will attain the hold the speed of the slow rate to increase to allow the time for the brake system to recharge. 18.11. Depleted the brake pipe pressure during the grade pipe of the reduction should make the evident that the engineer for the brake is not controlled with the traction effort. The train must be stopped and secured. 18.11.12. If the pressure cannot be restored, the conductor engineer will be responsible for reporting the train dispatcher who will issue the instruction. Alright, operation of the equipment. Dynamic brake. When available, the dynamic brake should be used to reduce speed, to bunch the slack, and to hold the slack while releasing the train brakes on the moving train. A care must be exercised when applying and releasing the dynamic brake to prevent harsh run in or run out of the slack. Throttle must be in idle for the 10 seconds before moving controls to be set with the dynamic brake. The dynamic brake. Alright, let's go over to 19. Operating with equipment. Dynamic braking. When available, the dynamic braking should be used to reduce speed, bunch with the slack, hold the slack in while releasing train brakes on the moving train. 10.1.2. Care must be exercised when applying and releasing the dynamic brake to prevent harsh run in, run out of the slack. Throttle must be in idle for the 10 seconds before moving controls to set up with the dynamic brake. The dynamic braking must be applied slowly and smoothly. When releasing the dynamic brake, the same precautions should be observed as specified with the dynamic brake application. Heavy dynamic braking must be avoided with the negotiation turnout with the crossover sharp curve. The dynamic braking must be used independently in conjunction with the train air brakes. The dynamic braking is applied when it becomes necessary to stop the train. The automatic brake must be used. The main initial reduction not less than 6 pounds, followed the additional brake pipe reduction is required. Gradually reduce dynamic brake until completely off. The inner brake valve must not be applied with the dynamic brake is applied on the locomotive. Applied on the locomotive, as this may cause the wheels to slide. The independent brake valve handle should be depressed frequently when the automatic brake valve is applied in conjunction with the dynamic brake. Avoid this wheel sliding. Effective June 15, 1986. When a dynamic braking force becomes ineffective, the independent brake may be applied gradually while moving the dynamic brake control of the off position. 9.11.2. The trains other than solid loaded grain or mineral freight with having 3 to 6 motor units equipped with the extending range of the dynamic braking must reduce 1/2 position on the dynamic brake control at speeds below 15 miles per hour. The 19.1.13. The trains having the 4 6 motor units equipped with the extending range of the dynamic braking unit must reduce 1.5 positions on the dynamic brake control below 20 miles per hour. 9.2. Select a power fuel saver device. The fuel saver device enables the engineer to subtract or add power onto the individual training unit, rather than reduce or increase power on all the units consist. Each time fuel saver to subtract the button is pressed, but the power is reduced to run one position on equip with the trailing unit starting from the rear of the consist. The power is restored with the units in the reverse order when the add power button is pressed. Fuel saver device is nullified when the reverse lever is placed in neutral. The dynamic braking is operative on all units consistent with regards of the fuel saver the mode Returning to power with each of the unit will return to the previously fuel saver setting. The fuel saver device must be utilized to the fullest extent within the full power is not required to maintain the normal speed. Backup hose. A backup hose is authorized design only to be used. They must be examined prior to each of the to see that they are fit and safe in condition. Backup hoses must not be used as substitute to hand signals or radio communications. The use of the backup hose is permitted with the car spotting operation provided that the proper communication is maintained with the engineer to ensure safety of the movement. Before starting any operation with the backup hose is used with control of the spotting of the car, the trainman engineer must communicate to ensure that both understand the move that is being made. After the hose is attached, the angle cock of the opening of the brake system charged with the brake test must be made before the movement is started. As follows: the engineer must cut out the brake valve on the locomotive train will partially open and control the valve by turning the handle slowly toward the position crosswise of the hose. Observe the brakes air apply on the car. Engineer, after noting the brake pipe production, will give the trainman proper signal and will cut off the brake cut valve. The engineer will control the movement in accordance with the signal for the trainman properly. After the brake pipe backup movement is started, the trainman will make an application for the brakes to determine the effective braking force. If such an application is not observed, the engineer must stop the movement in association reason. Observe the application of the brakes is made with slowly opening the valve until the desired brake effectiveness is obtained. The valve should be open, not be open more than 2/3 unless the emergency application is desired. If the desired braking is not obtained and surface application valve must be moved quickly to full open position and movement stop. 9.3.12, the emergency application of the brakes made up opening the valve quickly so that they handle the crosswise of the hose left in the position until the movement stops. 9.3.13, engineer must cut out the brake valve on the locomotive prior to approaching the vicinity of where the stop is to be made. 9.14, caboose valve. The brakes must not be applied from the train except in case of emergency. In making the backup, the switch movements whenever possible, the train must endeavor to attract the engineer's attention by the radio signal before applying the brakes from the train. To make a surface application with the caboose valve, move the handle clockwise to the position 2. Leave the handle in the second position at least 20 seconds. Then move the handle to the third position. Leave the handle in the position until the train is stopped. If the speed of the train is not being satisfactorily reduced with the handle within position 3, then after the 1 minute, move the handle quickly to the extreme application position. Leave it in there until the train stops. To make an emergency application, move the handle quickly for the release of the extreme application position and leave it in there until the train has stopped. 19.4.6. After the handle has been moved to any application position, it must not be returned to the closed or lap position until after the train has stopped. The handle must be moved to the extreme application position before moving it in closed or lap position. 9.5. Brake pipe flow indicator. 9.5.1. The brake pipe flow indicator may be used to determine the following information. The brake system is charged when the brakes are released on the rear train. The brake is being applied from the train. Heavy brake pipe pressure, system leakage, parted or bursted air hose. 9.5.2. The numerals of the flow indicator dial indicate the rate of the airflow with the brake pipe. The numerals do not indicate the brake pipe leakage in pounds per minute. The position of the black hand should be noted at the time of the departure of the red hand, set with one number greater than that, and then it is point as the reference mark. Any movement of the black hand to the right of the reference mark indicates the greater airflow of the brake pipe, in which could be caused by the burst of air hose, broken pipe, and brakes may be applied from the train, brakes being applied from the train. When the indication for the brakes are being applied from the train, the throttle and the brake valves must be handled as described in Rule 16.2. Retaining valves will be used where the specified with the timetable special instruction at any of the time of the grade with no judgment of the engineering conductor, then used with the necessary to properly control the train. When retaining the valves are not being used in place in the direct exhaust position, handle the vertical downward train will be responsible for the proper position of the retaining valve within the cars. There are added to the train en route. There are two types of the retaining valve that use the freight car: the 3-position type and the 4-position type. The handle position functions are as follows: exhaust handle vertical downward, the brake cylinder pressure of the exhaust normal, no pressure is retained. High pressure handle 45 degree above below the horizontal brake cylinder pressure, exhaust slowly to the 20 pounds, which was retained until the handle is returned to the exhaust. Low pressure handle is horizontal with the position and only with the 4-position type. The brake cylinder pressure exhaust slowly to the 10 pounds, which is retained until the handle is turned to the exhaust. Slow to direct exhaust. A handle of 45 degrees above the horizontal brake cylinder pressure, exhaust slowly, no pressure is retained. 9-7, end of the train device. When properly connected, the end of the train device will provide the following information to the locomotive cab. Continuously display the brake pipe pressure at the rear of the train, brake application for the rear of the train when the brake pipe pressure is being reduced at least 5 pounds, brake release at the rear of the train when the brake pipe pressure is being increased at least 5 pounds, a warning of when the pressure is at the rear falls below 45 pounds, a warning when the telemetry signals and interrupted between the front unit and the rear units revised June 15, 1986. The rear unit must be securely attached to the trailing coupler with the rear of the car brake pipe with the hose connection onto unit until the angle of the cock opens slowly. Each of the rear of the unit is factory coded with a unique identification number, which is included in each of the radio transmission. The front unit is provided with an ID selector to receive the transmission from only the specified rear unit. At least 5 digits of the ID number displayed on the rear unit must be selected to dial on the front unit. Once communication is assured between the end of the train and the ID selector on the front unit must not be changed. The rear unit provided with a means of visual displaying with a brake pipe the pressure measurement. The display may be used to comply with the requirement of the pressure to be indicated with the accurate gauge at the rear of the train. After receiving the low pressure warning of the front unit, display of the brake pipe pressure reading of the air remains under 45 pounds and no air warning display of the train must be stopped promptly for inspection. When any of the conditions indicated would adversely affect the operation of the end of the train, with the train dispatcher must be notified. Alright, air brake forms. 20.